Welcome to the Upshift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. And today we welcome Catherine Porth of Knoxville, Tennessee, my hometown. She's the founder of Let Her Speak, that's been around since 2017. And I know, because I've followed her journey, she has gone skyrockets since 2017. We get to hear about that today. Her mission statement, or the mission statement of Let Her Speak, is to elevate all women's voices, to facilitate deeper conversations, to inspire lasting change in our communities, and to build a stronger support system for more women to lead. Wow, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm personally happy having you on my show because of watching your whole Let Her Speak grow. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I can't believe it has been since almost the beginning that you and I had that lunch all those years ago.
Yes. And you are, in my eyes, a young female entrepreneur to watch. You really are just jet setting. But I will say this about you. It's not willy-nilly for you. I'm not sure how you do it.
Definitely not.
In fact, why don't we start there? How did you get into this? How did you know this was your calling?
It came from a place that I think a lot of women who start anything start from, which is a point of frustration. And unfortunately, so it was positive, but it definitely came from some negative experiences of growing up as a girl and a woman in a lot of male-dominated spaces and industries. Business has always been a large part of my life, and it was my major. And I was a part of a lot of organizations and leadership opportunities and things like that were in industries that were predominantly male-focused. And so I saw a lot of things that, as a woman, were very frustrating to me. But the other thing that I also witnessed and experienced was that we connect differently. It's not necessarily that the way that women connect and the way men connect, there's a right way and a wrong way. There's just a different way that we all prefer to connect with each other. And what I was seeing a lot going to conferences and going to meetups and networking events and things like that was that the approach or the model that we were all getting pushed into is not necessarily the natural way that we connect with each other on a deeper level. And I feel personally that is where a lot of animosity breeds, a lot of cattiness can be bred that way, because we really need to understand each other below the surface. Like we can go deep, and we like to go deep. And that doesn't always happen in spaces where it's much more of a, what do you do? What's your title? So that I know whether you're worthy of talking to or not.
Yeah.
So those frustrations bled into this idea that I had before I even moved to Knoxville at the end of 2016, but then fortunately got connected to a lot of amazing people right off the bat to make this idea come to life, which was, what if we turned things on its head and we created the space for women to really open up about these deep issues and stories and experiences that they've all had, to allow other women in the room to know that they're not alone and that they're also welcome and free to share their stories. It's not a she's on the stage and I'm in the audience type of experience.
Yeah, well, I get that because I've been on both sides of your audience and on the stage. And you do make it seamless that we're all in this together and that we are just who we are. We're not better than one another. And in the female world, it's kind of my pet peeve about the competition that women feel that they have to engage in. And it sounds like where your frustration may have had some foundation is the competition that gets fully fostered by these places that are not comfortable for women to connect in, because it's really not about being who you are. It's about being what you are.
Yes, and what the productivity that you can have. And I've experienced both types of, I guess you could say, cultures in corporate America. I experienced a very highly tumultuous, competitive environment that I left after 2 years. And then I went from that environment to an environment where the women were doing incredible work and were really pushing forward in a sales environment, which typically has more of that, that competitive energy naturally to it. Women in my department were so incredibly supportive and saw it as a rising tide mentality. And it was just a beautiful world to be in with all of these incredible women that were doing amazing work. But then I saw the side of the extra work that women are and, expected to do, of being the mom in the group. Like, one of my friends was the mom. Then when she left, I became the mom in the group because I was older and, I had more experience. And then, having to make sure to remember people's birthdays and, all those little tiny things. While we were all supportive and we weren't competitive against each other, there wasn't a lot of cattiness or anything like that. I then saw that side of all the extra work then that we were all expected to do.
When you said the mom part, I thought you meant like being a mom and this professional. That's a lot of extra work.
But being a mom to your coworkers.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And, and then that is a feminine aspect of being inclusive and bringing people in instead of shutting people out. Normally, I would say in my learnings about the natural female, the natural feminine, I should say, not female, but feminine energy. Right. So I have so many questions. It's like, which one do I ask her first? You formulated this thing, and then you've had, in my point of view, a very steady progression. What can you account? What do you attribute that to? How have you been so wonderfully steady? You've opened up this, you've grown there, again, not willy-nilly, but how did you do that?
I think it starts from, I'm a pretty grounded person. And so I have been able to harness that groundedness in knowing because people, when they're excited about things, they throw ideas out all the time and they ask you to do this thing and that thing, and they pull you in this direction, and they try to pull you in that direction. And it's a very common thing that happens when you create something that's exciting, which is a wonderful thing. But having that groundedness, I understood what was not right or what I was not ready at that point in my journey. So I think ultimately what really helped foster and carry things forward was honestly the pandemic and having that breath that I could take, because what had happened for me personally was I started Let Her Speak when I was in grad school getting my MBA. I graduated with my MBA in 2018, and I had been working with a startup for not quite a year when I graduated, and I continued with that startup, and I was basically the business person with a team, working with a team of engineers and computer scientists and designers and folks like that. And I was the business brain for the group. And as much as I enjoyed that, because Let Her Speak was starting to gain traction and notoriety and people were talking about it, whenever I was in spaces trying to speak with folks about the startup, they inevitably wanted to ask me questions about my own baby, and not the organization, the company I was representing. And I just never felt that was fair to the team that I was working with. And so in early 2020, I told the CEO I was going to step away and focus on Let Her Speak because, for one thing, people just won't stop asking me questions about it, and that's a disservice to you all. And also, there's just some directions that I think and some expertise that I just don't carry with me that I think would be more beneficial. And so we are still good friends, the CEO and I. We still catch up with each other, and I still utilize their platform, honestly, for a lot of my research because it was a data analytics startup. But that happened to be January 2020. And so then we all know what happens in March of 2020. In February of 2020, I had said, okay, I'm going to try to go full time into Let Her Speak and really wrap my arms around what it was that I had created. and put more strategy and direction and planning in place of where I could see it going beyond doing an annual event and doing workshops here and there. And and so I had this big, beautiful plan of all of these things we were going to launch in 2020, and the expansion of Let Her Speak and the expansion of our mission and new partnerships and all of these different things we were going to do. And then 2020 was like, hold up, we're just going to make the entire world pause, go through some pretty awful things. But in hindsight, it was, for me, as horrible as it was for the entire world. It did allow me the luxury of sitting back and really thinking about, what is it that I would enjoy doing? What is it that I feel that my talents and my expertise and my experiences can be best served through the vessel that is Let Her Speak? And out of that came a realization that while initially I was predominantly working with a lot of women entrepreneurs, to silo us to only working with women entrepreneurs, for one thing, it takes all types of folks and all types of connections to really foster growth for anybody. Women that are in corporate, women that are in nonprofit, women in the healthcare field, all of us are all facing very similar issues. They just show up, they might show up slightly differently, but ultimately at the end of the day, what I was recognizing was that the women that I serve and the women that are seeking the support that we offer and the expertise that we can offer are women that see a bigger world, that see that they have a place in it as a leader, but they might not have the support structure. They might not necessarily have all of the skills. They might not have all the connections to really do as much as they possibly could with this innate spark in them that they are a leader, and seeing that in themselves and knowing the paths that they and opportunities that they have in front of them. So we started pivoting more towards leadership, and with that came an understanding of not only what type of leadership training is out there and what kind of leadership, how is our world changing? Because during the pandemic, a lot of things changed in the leadership realm.
Right.
And then also there was, out of the pandemic came some negative setbacks from a wealth generation standpoint and women leaving the workforce. And so their lifetime of earnings was decreasing. A lot of people were stagnant in their jobs and wages were stagnant. And so there was a lot of that conversation too, that there is going to be a wealth transfer that happens, and a decent amount of women will be taking on wealth from their families, but there's still not a ton of education and confidence in talking about money and talking about wealth. And I consider that to go in tandem with, as you rise up as a leader, more than likely your income is going to rise up, but also that means that, but also women have a huge amount of economic power, and we can show our leadership through the ways that we invest in our communities and give back to our communities. And that power, I think, was very much felt like last summer, for example, with a lot of the more pop culture centric things that happen in the movies and with concerts and shows and things like that. So that's where this combination, which is the path that we've taken now, is around empowering women's and growing women's wealth, power, and influence. And that entails the leadership component, the wealth component, and then also something we introduced last year, which is the well-being component.
Right. Yes. My world. Now you're finally talking about my. But I got to go back. I'm listening to you, and I hear your path. I hear how you were drawn toward your audience's needs. I think that's what I've got to ask, though, for you personally, what was the journey like navigating what you want to do, what you think you're supposed to do, what you're really good at, and then what your audience, what your people, because you attracted a certain type of audience and then it grew. And then you had to pivot. It's like, well, I thought I was going to be delivering this and now I'm delivering the other. What was that like? Your personal navigation of Catherine's journey of like, okay, I quit my job. I'm going to do this. And then that moment, those crossroads, you had to hit several of those. I'm heading in one direction. This is what I know and I love, but yet they're asking me to do something else. What was that like, navigating, say, the pull of what's needed and the pull of what you want?
In all honesty, the navigation felt organic to me. And I think it's also by nature, I'm a very curious person. And I get bored pretty easily. I hate stagnation. And I'm always constantly seeking out new information, new perspectives, new ways of doing things, new ways of looking at the world. So and I'm a data person too. So, every decision that I do, everything that I look at is always rooted in data. And I think because of the way that I was raised from my parents, they always instilled in me that anything you can figure out how to do anything that you want to do. So I've never really struggled necessarily with like a fixed mindset or things like that. It's just anything that becomes a new challenge that's actually exciting for me. And I want to try something new, and I want to learn something that if it feels like something that's an area that I'm like, oh, I don't know how much I know in that, that's always a good thing for me because it gives me something new to research and dig into and learn about myself and understand, it's a new area to uncover, not only to learn more about me, but also to learn more about how can I serve others and support others and bring a different perspective. So I've always been more of a generalist than a specialist type of person.
Yeah.
I love being able to be the one that can step back and have that 30,000-foot view and understand how all the parts and pieces connect. I know in grad school, my career coach, she always called me the dot connector. No matter what it was, I could always step back and I could find all of these things that seemingly seem so different from each other. I could find the connective tissue that links them together, whether it's people or concepts or business, practices or anything like that. So I think it was just that's why it felt so organic, because I naturally do that. I naturally connect the dots. When I'm shown a certain challenge or problem, my brain instantly starts diving into, okay, well, what are the things that I already know? What are the things that I don't really understand? But I think that there might be a connection here because of some random thing that I read once, because my brain has an insane capacity of remembering too many things.
Yeah.
Random things. And so it never felt like it was oh my gosh, I need to pivot. Now it was more of like okay, this is an evolution of understanding what folks need. And that's where my love of data comes in and research. And so everything that I do, usually I dive into academic journals and research studies and things like that to understand what folks that are truly the experts in these areas, what they're learning about, what they're finding out about, and how can I then apply that and bring it to the general population and translate it into ways that can be useful and used in the real world and be applied to really support and help others in ways that maybe others haven't really necessarily thought about how those worlds connect.
Yeah. Wow. So I heard 2 superpowers. Now you have more than that. But dot connector and the data analysis person, I mean, that's incredible. So now, as being a connector and a dot connector, how important is the word no in your world?
Very important. It's something that especially since having my son, almost a year ago, I've gotten more, and I've built that muscle more and more, the no muscle. There was a period, and I'm actually, I always have in the back of my mind that there are things that I can say no to. But throughout, I'd say 2022, 2023, I was very intentional about saying yes to all kinds of things because I considered those my I called that my time of experimenting. I need to try out these different things and understand like what works, what doesn't work, because while sometimes in theory you can work out whether this is in alignment, or this is really going to help, or this is going to move the needle in the direction that I'm hoping to support other women, sometimes you just have to do it, and you just have to see, okay, is this something that if I were to do it again, I would still do it. So I embraced the fact that I knew I was going to say yes to a lot of things. And I didn't get to a point of burnout. I was really, I was still mindful of the fact of how am I feeling? How's my body feeling? Am I tired? Am I hitting a wall? Things like that. I think fortunately though, too, because during the pandemic, one other thing that happened was my fiscal partner, the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center, I actually came on board with their team too. So I had a team that was also supporting, and, I was working on developing programs for them and expanding programs that they'd had in existence, helping them with their back-end systems and automations and things like that. So I was doing all of this work, but I also was constantly around ways of being able to experiment and see how things work, and I was always talking to people, and I always consider every conversation that I have with someone, and my friends know this about me, is that I'm always taking away something. There's always an undercurrent of I'm seeking to understand better something about humans and something about people and something about the way we think and the way we look at the world and the way we interact with the world, because humans are so fascinating and we are so interesting. And so I approach every conversation with almost this mindset of I'm going to have fun talking to this person, whether there's some sort of outcome that we're hoping for or not. There's something that I'm going to learn. There's something new I'm going to learn from this person or about this person or about the way that they think, and that might be able to apply in different ways to the way that I can understand how others similar to them think and how they look at the world, and how I can connect with them and speak their language and help them out with a problem or a roadblock that they have. Yeah. So that was that. Now, though, since the beginning of 2024, now I say no a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot more now that I went through that experiment period.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes with you, I feel like. So share with us what goes on the front scenes. So you do all this work. Give me the biggest ripple effect that you see, that what Let Her Speak, I get its mission, but what do you see as its biggest effect out there in the world?
It's women finally embracing the fact that they have a power, and in their worlds, that power can be used to do a lot of really amazing things. And along with that, the fact that every person is important, every single one of them. And I think sometimes, depending on what life throws at us, we forget that we are important, and that there are things that we do that can cause a ripple. So in all honesty, I prefer to think of myself as a catalyst to the ripple effect. Like I have all of these, these women that can create ripples of change throughout their communities and throughout the world. I help them with the catalyst that then starts their ripple effect. So, I mean, there's so many different stories of women that originally had no intention of maybe seeking out a promotion or seeking out a new job, and then they go through one of our programs, or they come to an event, and that catalyst sparks something in them that makes them realize, like, I can do this. And there's other women out there that will have my back, and that see in me things that I might not necessarily have seen in myself, or I refused to look at, or I ignored for too long. So that's really what at the end of the day, this, in the simplest forms, it's to remind women that we are important.
Absolutely. And that means, like you said, even in your mission, that it'll create more space for us to be leaders in government, in businesses. in our households. I mean, that's even hard sometimes.
Yes.
So tell us what's next. What's your next step? What's your bigger vision for Let Her Speak?
As I mentioned, I mean, I'm in a state right now of slowing down. I sped up for 4 years, 2020 through 2024. Motherhood, and I knew this, and I actually welcomed it, and it was something that I was very much looking forward to, which is it forces you to slow down and to really get in line because you have to reassess what's important to you, now that you have this kiddo that becomes a big part of your world, and that you want to make sure becomes a good human for the rest of the world. And I consider that, a huge task in my leadership journey and my husband's leadership, is that we're leading this child to understand himself and understand his place in the world, and have the support and the love that he needs to know that he is important and that he has a power as well. But so right now it is a time of being slow and more methodical about what are the activities that truly are, and that I have seen proof that they really do make an impact, and they really do make a change, and that are also that I feel a sense of purpose doing these activities as well, that they light me up. Pay attention to if I'm doing things that don't light me up, because I have a tendency to get bored with things, I will have a tendency to become disassociated or disinterested.
And the word no comes in, right?
Yeah. And I know that about myself. So I try to be very mindful of, making sure that I understand and take it all in before I decide to go down that path, because any decision that I make, I'm saying no to something else if I'm saying yes to things.
And that's the tough decision.
It is. But, one thing that I've really been looking at and pondering is that I love all of the work in the community that's been built on a local level. And we have connections to women all over the country now too, that I know you have a woman that you've interviewed for the podcast too, that's in Arizona, that is a friend of mine that we've featured in Heather. And so I love that there's all of these connections all over the country. What I've been paying more and more attention to is what can I do in service that could be more at a global scale. Might not be through Let Her Speak. It could be more of the personal work of for me, and things that I can do, rooms that I can get into to be able to enact change, whether those are changes in policies, changes in within corporations and how they approach supporting the communities that they're operating in, or the employees that they are hiring, things like that. But there's a ton of research that's in the realm of supporting women and women feeling a sense of almost emancipation through starting businesses or starting something, whether it's a nonprofit organization, a for-profit business, what have you. So that's a path that I'm considering, is potentially getting my doctorate, and Let Her Speak would, still exist as a pathway for us to be able to connect with women, to also be able to bridge that gap between academic research and real life application.
Wow. I was going to ask if you were going to run for politics. You're going to run for...
No, I do not see. No, as much as I am fascinated by politics, but I don't think I have the gut for politics.
Well, if you did, I would definitely vote for you. So tell us something we don't know about you.
So you can tell that I'm a major nerd and that I love data and I love research. But I'd say, one thing is I'm a massive foodie. I love food. I love all of it. I love to cook. One of my favorite things to do is to plan out during the holidays is mainly a time that I can actually have the capacity to do this, but planning out a multi-course meal. I rarely in those instances make the same meal twice. So like this past Christmas, the theme was an English Christmas. And so every meal that I prepared and all of the courses that we had, from appetizers and salads through dessert, were all inspired by traditional English recipes. And so I was watching like Mary Berry episodes and all of that stuff. But that is, I genuinely, I really love to not only learn how to cook something new, but to adapt it and put my own spin on it. So I'm very rarely do I actually follow a recipe to the T. I always infuse some of my own stuff into it.
Love that. Yes. They say there's bakers, which I am partnered with one of those, very precise. And then there's cooks.
Yes.
I'm a cook too. It's like whatever's in the cupboard, let me make something fabulous, right?
Yes, I love that. I love the experimentation of just like, let's just see if this works. And my husband is very much he's a scientist.
Yeah.
Right? So baking he loves baking because it's very precise and exact. And,
right. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
So before we go, hey, you probably have a lot of these in your back pocket, but can you share with us a wisdom nugget? Some sort of motivation for those other change makers, for those people like you out there that you have so much charge, you have so much passion to do these things. Do you have a nugget of wisdom that's kind of like, let me just impart this upon you? Can you share something with us?
Oh gosh, you're right. There's a lot in my back pocket. I have books literally sitting in front of me filled with those. I would say that the greatest thing that I personally feel another human can do is to connect with someone through their story and to embrace that our stories are ultimately how we have for millennia connected with other human beings. It is one of the oldest forms of connection, entertainment, communication. Humans are humans because we tell stories and we connect through stories. Legacies are left through stories. Our understanding of the world is believed to be storytelling came about because humans were trying to make sense of the world around them. And so that is so deeply ingrained, I believe, in our DNA, and that we can't forget the importance of face-to-face talking to another person and sharing something more deeply about ourselves.
Yeah.
To help that other person feel that they're not the only one.
I agree. And it's in the hard side of that is, do I reveal who I really am? Because it might be scary. And when you do, when you get over that fear hump, the other person is so appreciative.
Yeah.
Because we're all just humans.
Yes.
But these facades and these expectations make it hard to share the real story sometimes.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me, with things like social media and the fact that everything is captured now. Everything can be captured. Our ugly side, our good days and our bad days can all be captured in an instance. That I understand the fear of taking that down, which is why I understand not doing it from a digital standpoint, and that it can be very difficult to do that digitally. But the simplicity of, and I'm a tea drinker, so the simplicity of taking tea, which in itself is a meditative experience, and sharing that with someone else, and that sends this message of, we're just us right now, and that's all that needs to exist, and let's just be human beings. And I think there's a lot of healing that can happen through that. There's a lot of anger that can be rectified and talked through when whether it's over a meal or over tea or coffee. Coffee, I feel like, has a little bit more aggression to it because you have so much caffeine coming out of you, depending on how you react to caffeine. But there's so many things that I think, and so much beauty that comes out of two human beings just having a conversation.
That's beautiful. Let's just let's just let this end here. That is an absolute, just makes me think about the whole gift of sharing tea. And what a nugget to give our audience. Catherine, thank you so much for taking your time out of your extremely busy schedule, not just let her speak with baby boy over there on his first Christmas. Thank you so much. And what you do, I know because I experience it personally, but for our listeners out there, Catherine is a wonderful, amazing person. Can they reach out to you? Is there a way to find you, Catherine?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of ways you can find me.
I would like to be reached out to. How about that?
I think the easiest, most accessible way is there's a contact page on the Let Her Speak website. It's literally contact us. That goes to my inbox. So I get every single one of those. It doesn't go into a void, and I reply to every single one.
So let's be clear. That's letherspeak.us.
Letherspeakusa.org.
Okay.
Yep. And then at the bottom, there's actually at the top, there's a link to connect with us.
All right. So that's letherspeakusa.org. Yes. Otherwise, you're going to get something else. We're going to be super clear.
Yes. Right. Yeah. It'll be, I don't know what you'll get, but it won't be us.
And we want to get you, Catherine. Thank you so much. And I hope that we all get to have tea with you at some point in our life.
Yes, please do. I love being asked to tea.
Have a good one. All right. Bye. Thank you so much, Catherine. Catherine Porth of Knoxville, Tennessee, the founder of Let Her Speak US. She told us where you can find her at letherspeakusa.org. Really appreciate her time and her motivational nugget that she left us, having tea. Just getting to know somebody over a cup of tea or coffee. Just sounds great, where we're all on the same playing field. So thank you for listening. I'm your host, Angel Howard, and I would love to get to know you better. Send me an email at angel@angelhoward.co or book me for a speaking engagement or on your podcast. Go to my website at angelhoward.co or for a deeper dive into your own journey, self-discovery. Buy my book, Issues in Your Tissues, on Amazon.com. Thanks for spending time with us today, and see you next time.